Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Burns, here, from the Nebraska Library Commission, not at the Nebraska Library Commission at the moment. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly online event where we cover any activities that may be of interest to librarians across the state. We do these sessions every Wednesday, normally at 10 a.m. Central Time. Today we're doing it at a special time that I'll explain in a second. And we do all sorts of things, a mixture of any kind of things you could think of, and we have commission staff and guest speakers that come in. To this morning for us, we are in Monterey, California at the Internet Librarian Conference. So here it is 11:30 in the morning, so good morning. And for those of you watching elsewhere, specifically I'll say hi to the Nebraska people, our home state where we're from. It's 1:30 in the afternoon for you, so good afternoon. Every time we come to this conference, we do a live broadcast of NCompass Live, and that's what we're doing again today. So we are here at the conference. This is the third day, final day of the conference. So we've been attending sessions, hopefully, and have some things to talk about. And this is also our the monthly tech talk of Michael Sauers, Technology Innovation Librarian. That's who's sitting here next to me at the Library Commission. It's his monthly episode of our NCompass Live. Which we coordinate with attending conference so that we can talk about what we saw and did here at Internet Librarian.
So this conference has something to do with technology, is what you're saying?
It should.
It's supposed to?
Hopefully.
Okay. Internet Librarian. Okay, that's technology, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyhow.
We're a little punchy from,
all
three
good.
days of conference.
So I'll pass over to you, Michael, and you talk about what we're going to be doing today and what we have on deck.
Well, what do we have on deck? Well, what we have on deck is, let's see, that's your camera's over there. We're trying a couple of different things this time around at conference. The last couple conferences we've had a small group coming together specifically. Today we tried to go for a larger group. We ended up with a small group, but we do actually have an audience, which I am going to attempt to actually switch to for just a moment. So audience wave, hey. And we're going to try to bring them into the conversation as much as just Chris and I talking, because most people who watch or listen to the show are pretty used to listening to us. So every once in a while we got to bring in those other voices.
Well, we want to bring in other people who are attending the conference and see how your experiences were, what you did, what you saw, things you attended, whether they were at conference or elsewhere that were useful to you, and for the people who aren't able to attend conference, to get a little taste of the kind of things that we're learning for you here.
Right. So I'm going to throw out to our audience, the first question I have for you is anybody in our audience, is this your first time at conference? Oh, okay. We got a first and we got a second. All right. And I'm going to actually try to switch this back. And we're hoping also the microphone will be able to pick us up for us.
I got it.
But I know where you're from. You're from the Idaho Library Commission.
Have our audience introduce themselves?
Oh, we can do that.
That would be
too. Okay. We didn't plan this, did we?
It's okay.
All right. Okay. Let's start with Rudy in the back row. If you just kind of give a wave and say who you are and speak up, because the mic's up by us here.
Up by us and facing the other way.
No, it works out the backside too, so we're good.
I'm Rudy Leon. I am the Technology Training Librarian at the University of Illinois at Urbana.
Great. And Jennifer?
I am Jennifer Koerber, and I am Web Services Librarian at Boston Public Library.
Okay.
I am Jezmynne Dene. I am the director at the Portneuf District Library in awesome Chubbuck, Idaho.
Woohoo! And next to you?
Shirley, Biladeau, continuing education consultant at the Idaho Commission for Libraries.
Great. And?
I'm Donna Hopkins. I'm a corporate librarian outside of Houston, Texas. And you've never heard of my company?
Okay. And we still haven't heard of your company. No, that's right. What I'm going to do, since I know my voice carries, I'm going to move the microphone.
They're going to need to, because
and we're going to put it
So quiet.
here and see how that works. Yes, sir.
I can move because I am also loud.
Okay, so we're going to rearrange the room just a little bit there. Now everybody can see that microphone. Okay, Shirley, right?
You want me next to it?
Yeah, I remember last time.
It still looks full. It looks fine.
No, it's good. We're good.
I could dance.
Okay, so.
Okay.
Oh, Oh, wow. All right. Okay. Who said
You
what
should
their
come
first
to
time?
Internet Librarian.
She did.
So, how's the conference been for you, I guess is my question.
It has been a great experience. It's like breathing rarefied air because all of the people that you read their blogs, you watch their podcasts, you listen to their broadcasts such as NCompass, you get to meet and you get to listen to and you get to network with. So it has really been a great opportunity.
And it was your second time?
The second time to this conference.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I had lunch yesterday with a librarian from Google, you know, and other people too. But and you're right, you get to see people talk that you've only read their blog or articles they've written in journals, that sort of thing. But it's also not as big as ALA or SLA where you feel lost in the crowd.
Yeah, that's
And the sessions tend to be more useful than at this giant conferences too.
Yeah, I can't tell you the last time that I attended a big conference. This is the biggest conference I attend because this is the litmus, in my very humble opinion, of effectiveness, you know, versus fluff.
I've never attended ALA. I have attended one PLA, and that's it. And then I come here and I go to computers and libraries every year and do it on my own dime because we have no travel budget anymore. So that for me, this is my professional development. I'm convinced of this fact. This is what I do.
We're gonna have to rearrange.
Oh, okay.
No,
All right.
this isn't working. All right, we're gonna just do some quick rearranging everything. Everyone's gonna have to be in the front row right near the microphone because we can't hear. Sorry. Quickly, I know.
Yeah, in fact, I'll switch back to us while we're rearranging here.
A couple chairs on this side of the table.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to deafen my
Needs to be around the
surroundings.
microphone, yeah.
Because I presented yesterday in the Steinbeck room
Without a microphone?
without a microphone.
You had no mic in the Steinbeck?
Well, it was over there and I was over
Oh,
here.
okay.
The
All
way
right.
that, because I travel. I can't
Right.
maintain
I'm
a
good.
position.
I can talk loud when I have to.
Okay, so we're pulling everybody around the microphone, so that should help. And I think, Jennifer, if we can have you say what you just
Okay.
said again, that should work a little better.
I can do that.
Enunciate.
How are my levels?
Good.
Excellent.
Oh,
Okay.
much better.
So I mentioned that I have never been to ALA. I have been to PLA once when it was in Boston because, well, that's convenient. And that I have been coming to Internet Librarian for 5 years, computers and libraries for 4, and that I do it all on my own dime because for me this is my professional development over the course of the year. This is what I do to get rejuvenated and to get refreshed and to remind myself there is more to life than the inside of my office and my institution.
Quickly, because of the mic issues, again, introduce
Oh, sure.
Oh, it did.
just a very quick name where you're from.
Jennifer Koerber, Boston Public.
I do go to the ALA meetings, and I go every year, in part because only half of my work is technology related, and the things that I do at Learning Commons and with leadership are all focused within the ALA organization, within the ACRL specifically. This conference, though, is what keeps me energized. Like right now, as much as I was excited to come here, part of me just wants to go sit in a corner and write because I am so inspired by the 2 sessions that I was at this morning that the juices are flowing. I have all of these ideas going, and I kind of don't want to take in any more ideas until I get those out. And so, but that's what this week is about for me is just getting all of that.
And introduce.
Rudy Leon, University of Illinois.
Yeah, and I'll add, I had that same situation where I've got 16 ideas and then had the conference chair, Jane, come up to me this morning and say, remember that other thing? Can you do that by like next Monday?
Yes.
I'm like, yes, Jane. Exactly.
Sure. And I'm on an airplane all night, so I can work on that tonight.
Oh, there you go. All right. So yeah, we are already planning the next show. So here's my question to the group. I asked this at CIL, and I'm going to get the impression that I'm going to get the same answer, but maybe not. Has there been one big kind of overall issue or conversation that's been happening here at this conference, and I'm already getting a shaking of the head. So that means I'm going to try to switch back here. That means you get to answer because you were saying yes.
And yes, and you already know, I think, what I'm going to say. The theme of this conference is play. Almost every session I've sat in on, the theme has been somehow play. And I actually got some really good quotes in the Innoplation this morning. It goes back a little farther than you would think. Albert Einstein said play is the highest form of research. And before that, you can discover more about a person in an hour of play than a year of conversation. Plato said that.
Wow. All right.
And throughout the keynote speeches and several of the smaller, it's all been about how we need to put collaborative play or any kind of play into what we do, whether it's with our staff or with our customers.
I've been very excited that that's been happening here. I had proposed a spec kit to ARL on innovation and play in libraries and was rejected. So I feel personally validated, but also realizing that there isn't enough awareness perhaps among high-level administrators in the big decision-making organizations that this is where we are now functioning, that libraries are about how spaces cultivate, spaces afford knowledge through play and innovation, how those things come together. And I wanted us to shout it from the rafters so that we can get their attention. I'm glad that we have a big decision-making administrator here in the room.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I get to make the decisions, but I do get to contribute. Yes, we get to contribute, and that's something I'm taking back because I, although it's always been back of my mind and key in working with people and training people, is that training is something that is done to you, and learning is what you do to yourself.
Oh, that was a quote from
a quote from JSB.
Yes.
John Seligman.
Oh, yes.
My newest mentor.
Hero. Again, from this morning, the illiterate of the future will basically be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
That's right, exactly.
That was from Alvin Toffler.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You guys will quickly introduce yourself again, just because they might not have caught it.
Oh, and this is, I'm Shirley Biladeau, continuing education consultant from the Idaho Commission for Libraries in Boise, Idaho.
Donna Hopkins, librarian at Champion Technologies outside of Houston, Texas.
Okay, play. Actually, that wasn't the answer I was expecting, but I think I went to a different session. Jezmynne, do you have another answer? Or?
One of the things that just kept coming up over and over and over again was privacy.
Okay, yeah.
So and all of us have heard now about how we are the product, right? We are not the consumers of anything free. If it's a free service like Facebook or Twitter or Google, you are the product. You're not a customer. So privacy came up. I did a presentation on Google Apps, and I had a particular gentleman in the audience rather aggressive in those decisions because now Google owns our information. Well, it's different because in this case, I am Google's customer. I have a service level agreement with Google.
And you're paying.
Yeah, well, right. I am cheap. I'm broke enough. My poor little library doesn't have to pay because I fit into the 501c3 under 50 users. But other large institutions have to pay. And all of us have a service level agreement. Our data is not to be mined. It is not to be taken for marketing purposes. And this is all verbiage in there. But again, you know, with all of this coming up, how do we communicate the safety of the privacy data to the people who are using Google Apps, who do take the paid version versus the free version? How do we communicate that you don't have to worry about Google having all of your stuff just because we use it and provide you services using those tools?
So that was something that really struck me, because privacy has always been an issue. I remember when Twitter was new and everybody's like, oh my God, your tweets are going to be indexed in Google. You know, let's all remember the New York Times rule, right? Whatever you don't want on the front page of the New York Times, don't put anywhere on the internet.
People still read that?
The New York Times
Yeah.
or the internet?
Oh, the New York Times. But yeah.
No, they read the New York Times on the internet.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But
Yeah.
almost 20 articles a month.
Oh.
So it's very interesting to hear the privacy resurfacing with
Right.
such venom based on this whole thing that came out with Facebook, and now Facebook is taking steps back, and we're saying, okay, when you actually log out, we're not going to keep track of what you're doing, but other services do that.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting to see also the profusion of tools that are coming up to deal with the privacy issue, like Ghostery, you know, which keeps track of all of the things. It's a browser extension for Chrome and for Facebook, or for what's the other one? Firefox.
Mhm.
Firefox and I are so broken up. But you know, Ghostery is really neat because you put Ghostery in Chrome, and it shows you all of the things that website is using for tracking data.
Yes.
And you can choose, well, okay, I want to go ahead and let Google Analytics, because I understand the purpose of Google Analytics. It is not to use marketing data. It is to give metrics back to that person. So I can allow Google Analytics to catch that information. I don't want the one-click ad plus or whatever. I can eliminate that, and then it won't track. So it's very interesting to see now these tools that are finally addressing the issue of privacy that we have been dealing with for, what, the last 6, 7, 10 years?
Yeah, I'm a user of Ghostery myself, and I will say it's been quite interesting, to the point of, in some cases, things I've blocked, now other things don't work.
Yeah.
So I need to start allowing those little things to, and usually it's involved with Facebook, where I have to unblock Facebook in order for whatever I'm trying to do to actually work. It is a little weird on that one. I also noticed privacy coming up with another recent development in the library service world.
All right,
Anybody
I'll do it.
wanna
I'll do it.
let me off the hook and
Yes,
take that
Michael.
one? Okay, I'll
So
switch back here.
at Computers and Libraries this past spring, there was a single session on ebooks, and it was overflowing. There were people in the hall, there were people everywhere, and the conversation overflowed the room too. And I believe the NCompass Live then we talked nothing about
That
nothing
was the
but.
answer I was expecting.
Right.
That was the answer that we got at CIL was
Right.
what was the dominating conversation.
Was ebooks, 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 ebooks. Because we had all just had we had all just gotten our statistics from the spring, where our ebook circulations went up by order of magnitude because everybody got a Kindle or a Nook for Christmas, or whatever winter holiday was of their flavor. And so, sorry, I'm Jewish. I have to do
That's all right.
Anyway, but the interesting thing here is that there is an entire 2 days worth of tracks on ebooks, and so the rest of the conference, I think, has been free to not have to talk about it because that's all in those tracks, and so everybody's talking about it as we speak right now. In fact, there's a panel discussion going on about the future of publishing and
And the
this, that, and the
monsters
other.
in that room, and
Yeah.
the tweets have been interesting.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yes,
boy.
and by the way, if you're interested, if you have a Twitter account, or if you actually, you can just search Twitter. You don't even need an account. Go to twitter.com and search for the hashtag is the little pound sign, or the
Number sign.
number sign. Thank you. That's the one I could never think of. And then so number sign IL2011, Internet Librarian 2011. And you can follow along too, because what's become more common at conferences, and not just library conferences, I know this is true of geek tech industry conferences and social media conferences, obviously, and kind of innovative, cutting edge South by Southwest kind of conferences, is that what's called the back channel, this Twitter conversation or Facebook conversation that's happening while the presentations are going on, can be just as enlightening as the conversation in the presentations themselves. And so if you want to follow along on that, feel free, because they talk about me, they talk about Michael. But like I said, I think ebooks are less an overarching concept in this conference because there's a whole 2 days worth of track dedicated to them. So people are talking about them there, and then they can talk about other things during the rest of the conference.
And there are other things.
And there are plenty of other things. Yeah, there are plenty of other things.
Drupal seems really big at this conference.
Drupal is very big. Yep.
I do have one question from the remote audience, and it's just it's not even related to what you're talking about. Jez, you mentioned ghost story or something. I just want to know what how to spell that. So what exactly.
Well, I'm not the spelling librarian, but I will do my best. It's GHOSTRY, ghostery.
There might be an E in there.
Oh, I don't know. I
It's
like I
all the
said, I'm
faster and
not the
actually,
spelling librarian.
Somebody with the laptops in front of them.
Yeah, by the way, this laptop is not because of I'm ignoring you. It's because I'm looking at my notes for the conference, which I keep in a plain text file. Thank you very much.
Okay, ERY, yes.
GHOSTERY.
So it was actually the way you spelled it on there in the question. They got it right. They just weren't sure.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, don't pay any attention to my spelling.
So where I keep hearing privacy issues when it comes to ebooks. Anybody want to dive on that one?
No.
Nobody wants to take that grenade.
I'll
in this
take it on
room?
because it has
Okay.
no impact on me.
All right, fair enough.
So there have been some recent agreements between Kindle and Overdrive, where Overdrive is where most public libraries and where most fiction, ebook fiction comes from, and most public libraries have relationships with Overdrive for sharing ebooks, for circulating ebooks. And for a long time, they've not been able to circulate to Kindle because of proprietary issues from Amazon. That has recently been resolved, and there's been a lot of enthusiasm about being able to share ebooks now to Kindle devices. However, you connect your library account with your Amazon account. When you do that, and libraries are essentially giving over patron information, however limited that may be, to Amazon. For me, one of the more frightening things about that, and it's something that people are, it's this balance is a lot of innovation is very exciting, but what is the cost of it? If you mark up your Kindle Overdrive ebook and then return it and buy it from Amazon in an ebook format or take it out from a library again later, your annotations stay on that book. So Amazon is keeping information about you and that book and your library all connected. And there's a lot that's very cool about that, but libraries have this particular relationship to patron privacy and protecting intellectual freedom. And we won't give the government your reading records, but Amazon will. Mm-hmm. So it makes that a permeable wall, which is something that concerns me, but I also don't have to tell my patrons that I have to make that choice between them being able to use their Kindles and that wall. So I'm in an academic library and we don't circulate through Overdrive. So I will take I'll take the bullet on that one.
Yeah. Well, and from the other side of the digital divide, and this has also been my personal overarching theme. I just got DSL in my neighborhood last week. Okay, most of my people don't even have a cell phone, not much a smartphone. So I'm still living in a place where Netflix is fantasy. Which is kind of cool that I can now actually take advantage of this stuff. But what this means for me as far as this Overdrive Kindle ebook privacy problem is that I get the luxury of maybe a year before it hits my neck of the woods. I know of two users in my library area that have ebook devices, and one of them is a board member, and I don't count that because it's a board member. It's not a real user. And I apologize in advance for any board members out there, but
they're a special class of users.
Well, yeah, because they're the staff of the library because they're so directly related to the functioning and existence and the stewardship of the library. So I always take everything they do with a grain of salt because they're just as educated as the staff are as far as what the library is doing. So, I get to wait and see what the industry is going to do. I get to wait to see if the industry is going to come up with standards. I get to wait to see what's going to happen with privacy. And maybe other libraries might want to think about taking that tact and just giving it just a little bit of time for the industry to catch up to the issues before jumping in.
And
No, go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay. I was going to say, and now I come in on the third perspective here, because at Boston, city of Boston, Massachusetts, major urban area, no, we're in the thick of it, and I looked at our statistics, our web use statistics, the day that the Kindle was announced, and it just went bing, and then down again. It just absolutely peaked at about 4 times normal the day that the Kindle Overdrive agreement was announced and they could start circulating Kindle books. And I will tell you, my husband, who is a geek and who is aware of the security issues, privacy issues, what have you, and hi, honey. Yeah, I'm talking about you again. Has made the choice with full knowledge to allow this sort of, to allow Amazon to know what he's reading, because he finds the value proposition of an e-reading device to be sufficiently useful to him that he is okay with that. And so within 24 hours of the Kindle announcement, he asked me, honey, next time you go in, I've lost my library card number and PIN. Could you go and get it for me so that I can do this? And he's been checking stuff out on his Kindle because he had already made the choice to work with Amazon. And I think where the waiting, and by the way, I'm not coming down on any side here because I'm going to sit right in the middle and also wait and see, because I had to do this for the music industry. We're going to see this in the print publishing industry. We're seeing it everywhere. And where the waiting will help, if you wait a little while to hook into this, is to see kind of where the potential for abuse is, and also to educate our users. You don't have to use Kindle for this. There are other resources for ebooks out there. There are other resources for getting this stuff. You just because it is the biggest and easiest solution, and it's smooth as silk. He said he got in, was done, had downloaded, and done in 2 minutes. It is absolutely, what was the word from this morning? Effortless, frictionless. Frictionless and seamless. And so we all know what happens when you've got something that's frictionless and seamless is it's seductive as heck. Yeah. And so what we have to do as libraries is tell folks, no, just because it's the easy answer doesn't necessarily mean it's the right one for you. But if you have already made that choice, then by all means, this will make your life much easier. So that's why I sit in the middle on this, because I do see both sides.
I think you're absolutely correct. We need education, and so while we are waiting, I see there's 2 things that we, as library professionals, need to be proactive on. One is education, telling our end users about the options, what happens on the back end with different providers. Also, we need to be proactive, and whatever we can do to work with vendors, to make that connection with vendors, to be part of the decision-making process is very important. So I think partnerships, collaborative communications are essential. We just shouldn't sit and wait, but we...
Yes, that's been another theme I've been hearing this conference is we have this wonderful image of the uppity librarian. We need to be more uppity librarians, people.
Radical,
uppity, and more importantly, to understand that if you are in a one-person library, that matters. That so matters. I come from a very, very, very big library system. True. I also know plenty of people who are the solo librarian. We have a lot of them in Massachusetts, out in the western part of the state, down on the Cape. Single-person libraries are everywhere. And as with every other part of our wonderful democratic system, one voice doesn't mean a heck of a lot, but a collection of single voices is what makes a difference. Right. And so we have to remember, as a field, as an institute, all of us, that we, as a profession, thank you, that we are that collection of single voices, and even if we don't all agree with each other, and we don't, then we still can be that collective voice. And just by talking about it, and mentioning it, we can do that.
Well, so how do we negotiate the different ones? May not be interested in Nebraska Live, but so I'll just say that we, for me, I hear what you're saying and still want to respect it, but also say we have this code of ethics that we are supposed to be living by that I think trumps whether or not we all agree about privacy. And if we disagree about it, we need to be having the conversation within the profession and change the profession's obligations about it. And not, and that's where we as a profession need to have that conversation.
Right.
I think that the reasons why we protect patrons' privacy trump whether or not they want their privacy protected. So that's my voice in all of that. And our role as libraries, they don't have to come to the library. They can go to Amazon and give away all of their data. But if somebody wants to, and this is, so when I was in graduate school, I studied extremist religions. And I was quite glad that I could take out all of these books from the library and that no one was trying to profile me on the basis of what I was reading about the extreme right and about the guy, I can't even remember his name anymore, who lives in a cave in North Carolina and wrote the book that they used as a blueprint to do the Oklahoma City bombings and the Turner Diaries. And I had to take out I took out a P.O. box so that I could buy that book, so that I could read it. So, and I didn't use my credit card. I went to the bank and got it. I mean, I did a lot of things to protect my privacy because I didn't want anybody profiling me on the basis of what was my area of research. And I think that I was smart enough to know that I could go to my library for that is great. And if somebody doesn't know that they can go to the library for that, I think the library still has an obligation to know that people can study things that, like how to build a bomb. It doesn't mean they're going to go out and build a bomb.
Right. Let me try to broaden this out a little bit, lest we turn this into, ebooks and how horrible they are. But actually, this kind of leads into something that was said this morning at the keynote, and I will say Stephen Abram by name because I found it vaguely ironic that he was the one who was saying it. In his observation was that issues like these are starting to maybe polarize librarians.
Starting to?
Okay, well, I guess this is my question. Do you agree with that? Are issues like this? I don't want to talk about the issues themselves, but are issues like this really starting to polarize us? Is there a common voice that we have? What sort of where do you want to take that?
Can I say none of the above?
None of the above. Now you just have to defend.
Well, because I don't think we've ever had a cohesive voice on big issues. I think many times there is a majority voice or a voice of the people at the top that the rest of us don't necessarily agree with, and pick your issue and I'll tell you if I agree or not.
Sure.
But I think it's maybe there's the voice that's heard more, but I definitely think that there have been disagreements, people who don't necessarily agree with what people think all librarians believe. And for all I know, all of us are in that group, or none of us are in that group.
The annoyed librarian does an excellent job of being that voice.
I know that I haven't always agreed with every single thing the ALA says is important that all librarians should fight for. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't. And so I think in that way, it's true that yes, there's some polarization going on, and when there's new issues, there may be new polarization. But I think part of it is just societal, that there's so much polarization going on anyway, then you also notice it in your own profession, you also notice it in your own town, that kind of thing. And I think that may be, but I did like what he said about even if you don't agree, at least understand the opposing point of view.
Sure.
Right.
And that will help with the polarization. But
I agree with you. I think the polarization that Stephen was speaking to this morning is a result of our society. And we look at the various things that are happening politically, economically, and even when I talk to people, it's like there are people on one issue that believe this very strongly, and people over here that believe very strongly over there, and never the twain shall meet. I'm kind of the middle of the road person sitting on the fence. I can see both sides. I try to understand, and to me, that's what Stephen was trying to speak to, is getting people to, you don't have to agree with everybody, but you need to try to understand where they're coming from.
And I wonder if, much as with society in general, the impression of increased polarization and increased opinions is simply because we can all hear each other's opinions so much faster, possibly without everybody thinking about their opinions first.
And expressed in 140 characters.
And expressed in 140 characters, or slightly more if you're on Facebook. But it's that idea that we can now share individual, like I said, and I seem to be on a theme today, those individual voices come out a lot louder and at least a lot more accessibly because they are on to internets. And so we might be getting that perception of polarization rather than it being actual, that it being any worse than it has been in the past. I think of the librarians who would put the books behind the desk that they didn't want the fifth graders to read, and it was under lock and key in some places, and in some places it was just next to the desk. In some places it was out in the snacks, and that's polarization. Those are different practices based on people's opinions and beliefs. But now we're just hearing about a lot more of it.
And I think it happens a lot faster too. It's sort of like a flash mob of opinions. That people put that out there, and someone else will put up, "You're an idiot." It's exactly the opposite that's true.
Right.
Well, and I think that a lot of this is also coming about because some of the privacy issues are finally becoming mainstream.
Right.
So, again, to get back to what I was saying earlier about the emergence and creation of Twitter, the public versus private, lock your tweets down, all of this sort of privacy stuff, now we see that in very large ways outside of our information profession. How many times has Facebook changed their theme and privacy settings and you've had grandma complain on Facebook? How many times has there been an article in your local newspaper complaining about privacy issues? So I think that part of the polarization that we may be experiencing has always existed. It's just now that we do have, a farmer coming in off the field because he's concerned about whether or not his pictures that he's uploading to his friends and family are going to get out to the next farmer because of privacy leakage. So we have this percolation into the mainstream.
I had just 2 seconds. I spent an hour talking to a grandmother and her 10-year-old granddaughter because the granddaughter had been the victim of identity, not quite theft, but abuse, because her classmates had picked up on her social media profile and had hacked it and were saying all sorts of nasty, disgusting things at, age 9. So it's not just expanded across and out to other people. It's also going deeper, and it's affecting kids. It's affecting everybody.
Or the news stories that say, "Don't post your vacation photos while you're still on vacation on Facebook because your house might be broken into."
Right, because everybody's there under the
Jennifer and I one day are going to have a very public discussion about that.
Today is not that day.
Because we keep debating it. Even at dinner last night, she kind of cornered me on something. I think got me to back off. But Rudy, did you have something you wanted to say about that?
In terms of the electronic privacy going mainstream, I caught a tweet last night that I can't chase down the factuality behind today, that the Electronic Communications Privacy Act is actually moving through Congress to be updated for the first time in 25 years. And there's been a lot of push to update it recently, but I think while we've been here and following only Internet Librarian news, something happened in the world that finally broke through, and they are now looking at Congress not updating it.
Right.
And I have a totally tangential, yet moderately related, because there's a keyword in comment, something that has been rolling around in my head. And so when we are ready for a new topic, I would like to bring that to the group, because I'm very interested in asking this question. So I don't know if you have an agenda, Michael.
We have about 10 more minutes. So here's what I'm. Well, okay, we did start a little late. Okay, here's what I'll do. Okay, I'm gonna put the camera back on over here for a second. I'll have Jezmynne bring up her thing, but when we do that or we get close to running out of time, to kind of bring it back to the conference, although this has all been great because it's been stuff we've been talking about at the conference, is there one kind of tip, tool thing you learned at conference you want to make sure that anybody listening to this learns about?
I know.
So let's have Jezmynne bring up her issue, and we'll do that for about 5 or so minutes, and then we'll bring that back.
So
we have more than that? Okay, maybe 10 minutes.
Well, and it doesn't have to be that long. But one of the other things that is a theme that I've heard from more than one librarian and more than one vendor in the time that I've been here is that we provide containers. Do you rent the content of the container? Do you own the content of the container? So there's been that issue. This morning, a very dear friend of mine is at EDUCAUSE, and she tweeted from a vendor session or of something that vendors put candy in machines. What we need to do is build partnerships. So how does the partnership negotiate with the candy that we're putting in our container? Because I thought that was very philosophical in light of how we have the container. Are we building a partnership for the content, or are we just buying candy for our vendors?
Are we the container, or are we the candy? Okay, I guess is
I
the question.
think we're the candy machine, and we're getting different candies and putting them in the machine. But I think to sort of continue that metaphor with all of the collaboration and everything, I think it's more than, it's sort of like, all right, you know how you make other desserts from those candies, and what we are is we're the kitchen where people can come to take those candies and combine them and make their new dessert out of, you know, so you melt those chocolates and you put them on there.
You have to keep a well-stocked pantry. And I'm at the University of Illinois. I'm at a flagship state institution. We're the container and the candy. And we have to come up with a way. We are expected by everybody else to come up with a way to keep the container intact.
And to also come up with new candy.
And fresh. And new candy, but we got to keep the rats out of it. We got to keep the little kids, you know, from eating it away. We have to keep the content. So we have to own the content, or it isn't available for people to mix and match in the future.
And
so that's part of our organizational purpose.
And another question
that
this kind of
comment from the audience just says foodies unite.
Well,
yeah, we can have with some fresh vegetables in it too or something.
And the thing that this also, but the question this also begs for me is if we start building a partnership with our vendors, do we lose the ability to dictate the candy we buy from them?
We already gave that up.
But
I would think we would be more likely to regain it with a partnership. To say, look, we're partners, and this is what we really need.
And I think the conversation needs to happen. What do we want out of that partnership?
Yeah.
Before we go to them, we need to have a conversation among our profession and identify what our vision and what we can contribute to the partnership, what we would like them to give to us, because otherwise they're going to once again dictate what the partnership's going to be.
I almost feel like we can't wait to have that conversation, because there are some libraries, Kansas is already starting to do that. Other library systems, the examples are already out there. If you want to be a part of that conversation, you can, with vendors, you can say, look, they're doing it over there, they're doing it over there, they're doing it over, and this is what I mean by that, those single voices and that collection. Not necessarily that we have to be this cohesive whole and all say the same thing, but talk to each other enough so that we can say, okay, I know they're trying to cut that deal with you, and they're trying to cut a very similar deal with you, and they're trying to cut a very similar deal. Well, you know what? I'm going to add my name to that list. I want to be able to retain my content. I want to be able to retain this and keep talking to each other, because we can now. And that way we all know, or many of us know, what each other is trying to get out of those same vendors. So even if we're not doing it collaboratively or consortially or howeverly, we can still say, but I know they're trying to do the same thing, and I want to be in that boat too.
Well, and we have to retain the right to be able to tell other people, this is what I'm
Yeah.
getting out of my partnership with that vendor.
Right.
So my brain's hopscotch through a few tangents, so I'm not sure how connected back to it this still is. But I'm thinking about civic good and the conversation about civic good. And this started somehow with thinking about the vendors as a for-profit organization and what would the library's weight in a public and for-profit partnership actually look at. But I think we often forget to talk about, or at least we in academic libraries maybe forget to talk about, the civic good and the role that we play in that. And
That came up at the dinner I was at last night
okay,
with Helen Flowers
Yep.
okay.
about
Oh my God, I love her.
civic good. I know, yeah. So
I just want to follow her around.
I'm trying to make a connection here. Call her. Because I can't, to be honest, it was late, so I can't necessarily recall exactly what she said, but that's what she was talking about.
Okay, see, I feel
Was
like
that
I'm
civic
walking in
good?
Helen's shadow.
She said that phrase.
Should have dragged her
exactly.
upstairs for a presentation.
When you just said it, I was wondering where I heard it, and I heard it at dinner
It was
last
at
night.
dinner
Okay,
last night.
I wasn't
By the
at
way,
dinner last night.
Yeah, I know.
I was about to say, so I'm going to yank us out of this for half a second to say, when you attend, not if, when you attend conferences like that, do not just sit with the people you already know. I said this last time.
Yeah.
Do not just eat dinner and lunch with the people you already know, or breakfast. I never would have. Bring an extra power strip. Bring extra.
Yeah.
Bring snacks.
Don't forget your cards.
Don't forget your cards. But also bring things to share.
Yep.
Because, and I'm sorry, I've totally gone from this theoretical thing back down to hardcore practicality. But when you attend these conferences, bring things to start conversations with.
Who are we talking to, by the way? Are these citizens of Nebraska? Are these librarians?
Librarians
Oh,
of Nebraska.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
No. They're sorry. I've done this several times.
Yeah.
So, but y'all might have seen me in the spring.
Molly's in Nebraska too, from what I hear.
Yeah.
Yes, they're
Yes,
all
yeah,
over.
all over. Yeah.
And so when I never would have met Michael if I hadn't needed to plug in my laptop at some point a couple of conferences ago. And so you go out and don't be afraid to ask luminaries of our profession out to dinner, because they were once first-time attendees just like everybody else, because that's how you get to have these more interesting conversations. You get a lot out of the sessions, but you can get as much or more out of those smaller moments like this. This is not a session formally. This is a conversation we are having in a room. We happen to also be doing it in front of a microphone and a camera.
But dinner is one of the most important parts of this conference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I specifically chose a dine around last night that there was not a single person on the list that I knew.
That's a great
Yeah.
thing to do. And for Krista and I have had some interesting experiences lately with newer librarians coming up. That, we're the known people, and let's not tell that. Old Jennifer was there. That's why she's laughing. But
Oh, it's okay. I just had that happen today. So
yeah,
it's
okay. But we have those people that we look up to. Even if people are looking up to the speakers, those speakers have those other speakers that and the people who give the keynotes, and
Right.
that person even knows who I am.
John
and
Seeley Brown
so,
said hi.
yeah, right.
Wow.
Well, and I keep running into the people that were at my pre-conference. There were only 4 of us there, but we've met accidentally all 4 days.
Right.
Yep.
And no matter how high up these people are in the conference food chain, they're totally
Oh, yeah.
friendly. I mean,
Yeah.
you can go to the person who was the huge keynote who you're like, but they'll say, hi, how you doing? Want to come and have coffee with me?
And then you see them after hours and get a totally different impression of them.
There's that.
Were you at karaoke last night?
Right.
No, I was at the session before karaoke.
Oh, okay.
Did I mention uppity librarians?
Yeah. So let me now ask that question about tools, tips, tricks, something that you got out of this conference. Ghostery was already mentioned, which I think would have been a great thing for the face-off last night. That would have been an interesting tool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really collaboration now that I think about it, so maybe not that. But
Kind of
what and even if it was a
talking about
particular
building
session,
silos.
it doesn't have to be a website. Just something you learned that you think anybody watching, listening to this now later should have heard, needs to know about.
Liz Lawley mentioned this morning that freshmen are showing up at RIT with MakerBots.
3D printers.
3D
printers. This
And mine's
is
going to
not
follow
the
right
future.
onto this.
Wow.
This is not the future. This is not, okay, it's the Rochester Institute of Technology. This is a fairly sophisticated
My
group
hometown,
of
I will just
freshmen.
shout out there.
But we're still, I mean, freshmen are showing up on campus with MakerBots.
Which
We're not
costs
talking
less than
about something
$1,000.
100 years from now or 10 years from now. This
Or in
now.
someone's imagination.
I'm getting little goosebumps just thinking about what does this mean? What does this mean for our libraries, for our campus 3D photocopying? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that is going to be chewing on my brain because I didn't think it was now. I thought it was soon,
Now,
but now.
so I'm going to jump right on this because what I saw was Nate Hill, who a number of years ago talked about library outposts, the idea of putting little libraries into storefronts, which is something I grew up with, so I didn't think it was new. But anyway, but his new gig is called Library Lab.
It was cool.
www.librarylab.org, and these are modular library components that can be fabricated, and he talked about fabricating them. He's from New York originally. He's now here in the West Coast. Can be fabricated in these kind of maker, and if you don't know what the maker community is, it's this new emphasis on hands-on, practical tool learning, but also with a lot of geekery. So 3D printers and CNC routing machines that can, laser routing machines, all this fun stuff. And these don't just exist on the coast. They exist in the middle of the country. And I'm going to get there in a sec. But the Library Lab idea is that they'll send you the designs to build these modular components. So you can create a scanning station, you can create a collaboration station, you can create an audio recording and remixing station, and it's just the structure. You then provide all the technology that goes into it.
There were 20 different things. 20 something. 11?
Yeah.
It was a huge list.
And it was, and they're just fun because you can insert them into your library, your existing library spaces. It doesn't ask you to build new buildings. You can take a storefront and stick it in there. I mean, you can do anything with it. And what this means to me, and this is something I thought of at the Nebraska state conference that I was at a week or two ago, libraries could become, in places that don't have hacker communities yet, we could become a place where the folks who are doing this in their garages, and they are everywhere, they are across the country, because they are those kids who have picked up that 3D printer for under $1,000 and are doing it in their house. We could be a place where those folks go and meet and talk to each other and become centers of those communities. I suggested it to the Omaha folks at Nebraska, and I hope, if you've ever heard of any weirdo kid, 20-something, 30-something who's into this stuff, find them and get them involved in your library and see if they'll come to you and help create that as a community center. And now I shut up.
Can I just read the intro to the Library Lab website?
Sure.
Because this is something that stuck. One of the things that resonated with me is I'm involved with the Library Commons movement, and a lot of stuff that I'm hearing about is mirroring that in public libraries. And this statement on the Library Lab page, configurable spaces for knowledge creation. Library labs are community centers for annotation, classification, creation, curation, digitization, education, publication, and media production. To me, that's what a library is, because that's what the Learning Commons is. And I feel like in a matter of days, Learning Commons and library will finally acknowledge they are the same thing. And this is, I wasn't at this session, but
It's awesome.
am fascinated by this idea, because this is what a library is.
Right. And also, you don't have to have a maker fabrication lab nearby to do this stuff. You could give this to retirees, those handy dudes who have got the full tool set in the garage, and they could take the specs and cut this stuff out too.
They're usually looking for a new project.
And they are totally looking for a new project. And now you've given them a way to get back in touch with their library and to get back to that and do something cool and modern at the same time. Everybody wins. All right, now shut up.
Well, just a couple of things that I'm going to look into more. I went to a session yesterday, or Monday. Was that? No, that was 2 days ago.
It all blurs.
Someday, Gary Price, who used Resource Shelf, which is now morphed into InfoDocket, And he's got a list that's called j.mp/best betas. And he's got all sorts of great links there. And the one that caught my eye was the C-SPAN library. It's all searchable. You can find all sorts of things, take out clips, whatever. And then the other thing was in the vendor area. I don't know if any of you looked into the Biladeau.
Yeah.
But
I took a peek at that.
I haven't really looked at it, but the concept sounds cool.
That's Blekko.
It is really neat. I
It's a
second
search
that.
engine, but it's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm planning on posting it on my library's website and talking to my community because the issue of privacy has come up, and they are a very privacy concerned search engine. They only keep their search data for 48 hours before they purge it. You can opt in for privacy levels. You have to opt in to your privacy levels. So it's very interesting. But the thing that draws me to it is the whole concept, which is for us something we know, is the slash tag. Okay, so each search, you put in your keyword and then you put a particular slash tag, /travel, /games, / what have you, and they have a whole
/date was an interesting one, and you could specify a date, or if you just said /date, the most recent stuff came up first.
And the reason why I like that is it provides the concept of hierarchy and limit to my users. And I don't think that many people really get that in my community. And I like the fact that I can talk about this and give them a visual concept of hierarchy and structure. So I'm very excited to implement and play with Blekko simply because I think that it's going to be a great teaching tool to teach people in the community to think in a very hierarchical, pre-categorized way that they may not know.
Mine is small but pervasive, at least at this conference, and that would be the QR codes. I came here only having seen them in Macy's ads.
But they're in Macy's ads. They're in Macy's ads.
And
blows my little mind.
and I have a dumb phone, so I didn't really do the whole treasure hunt that they had going on here. But isn't that a cool idea for a public library to have?
Yep.
And to guide people through resources, or just have a treasure hunt to show people the parts of the library.
Or it's a great collaboration tool. I've been discussing with my local historical society. I'll create and host your QR codes you give me, and we put the QR code on historical buildings.
Well,
and people in a walking tour then take a picture of that QR code, go to my library website
right.
to get their information as a collaborative partnership.
Well, I had, on Sunday night, I was given a business card that has a QR code on it. It goes to her LinkedIn site. I was thinking in terms of, I'm in a corporate library, so what if sometimes I put signs up outside the library that say, isn't this interesting? Or, hey, I've got a lunch and learn coming up. What if I put up a QR code that sent them to a site?
So this is my concern with QR codes. And I've been having a conversation with our farmers market trying to integrate QR codes. They're very excited looking for people to help with them. They also got really excited when they started taking the various food stamp mechanisms. I guess food stamps aren't stamps anymore. They're cards and all sorts of things. But it may be a false assumption, but if folks are on food stamps, they're maybe not carrying around a smartphone. Right. So how does the digital divide play into this? And if you have, what kind of information do you want to put up for the smartphone carriers that is icing and doesn't disadvantage folks who can't get to that information? And I think that's a big community conversation to have.
And
they are really
since
cool,
I'm corporate, my community is very small, and I know many of them do have smartphones. And if someone without a smartphone asked about it, I could always explain it to them. But I have a much smaller community.
And in the interest of time, we
Right.
didn't interrupt. Do you have another
Yeah,
tool
I
you want to
have.
share?
Well, and this is very meta. I come from a very different environment than most of y'all. And Shirley and I are closest because we share a state, but Shirley is in the big dog of the city. And we are, pardon the pun, we are small potatoes, right? Get it, Idaho? Yeah, okay. So what that means is that it is a little bit more challenging for me to find the takeaways because I'm very resource thin. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of staff. I just have an awesome library commission that helps my library to the best of their ability. But what I can say is that no matter how small you are, no matter how resource thin you are, you will find a takeaway from coming to a huge conference like this.
Even if it's just awareness.
Yeah.
And I say there should be no just, even if it's awareness, even because, yeah, I come from a big city library, but I can't implement 90% of this either because I come from a big institution that has big institution problems. And, you know, for all that we might have resources, we don't necessarily have, you know, and this is true of any large institution, cohesion, a culture that supports it, a city that supports it, a city that wants it. You know, there are entire neighborhoods where I know that the smartphone penetration is not the way it is in other neighborhoods, and so we have to make those choices. And to provide that, you know, I think about the QR codes. I'm like, you get the sign with the text and the QR code and the URL underneath, and now everybody's covered. And you know, Braille, because you got to cover everybody. And a little talking thing. And the manufacturer, by the way, who will come up with those signs and then make them attractive enough to stick on historical buildings that has all of that functionality built into an iPad-like plaque that you stick on the outside. In brass will make...
In 50 years, we'll go, what's those little squares in the corner do?
Right.
You know,
yeah, but they're going to make millions, so if you know of somebody who can do that, do that.
But you were saying you're small. I think in small situations, it's even more important to come to these so that you get the serendipity of interacting with peers.
Connections. And other small libraries. They're here. They're here and they're talking.
Yeah. Okay. Don't change it yet? I just changed it. Okay, change it back. Okay, Krista has something to say, but she doesn't want to make it.
No.
Okay.
What were you saying?
I was just going to wrap up.
Okay,
Yes.
no,
Well,
I was going to say, yes.
say thank you all for coming here.
Thank you.
Yes, while you're on camera, yes, thank you. You've never done this multi-camera thing. This is cool.
I like it.
Ooh, we're experimental.
Yeah.
Innovative
There
play.
you go. Which is fail, fail, fail again, and then succeed.
Tech Talk. I'm done.
Okay. Bye, Nebraska.
Bye, Nebraska.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone for coming, and for all of you guys coming and helping us out, sharing what went on these last few days at conference. This has been great. Every time we do this, we kind of tweak the format, and we're working on it to get it to be something, I don't know, perfect. So I think this is great.
It's like the conference.
Yes.
The energy.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
All right.
So I think this is great. Yeah, thank you so much. So I think that does, wrap it up for this week's edition of NCompass Live. We will be back in town in a few days, and next week we will be broadcasting back at the Library Commission at our regular time, 10 a.m. Central Time. So I hope all of you out there will join us then, where we will have staff from the University of Nebraska at Omaha talking about community engagement they're doing with the local Girls Inc. Club in Omaha, and seeing how their university and the local organizations are working together. So that is our topic next week. Regular time, regular channel.
Same bat time,
Yeah,
same bat
yeah,
channel. Yes, okay. All right.
All right.
We're done.
All
right.
right.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you very
attending.
much.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.